Here.
Okay, we're holding Daf Yutes Amud Aleph. Last few pages of this Gemarrah is talking about tuma and tahara. We gave the intro last Shiur and the Shiur before, not last week. Sorry, I was out. Do I have even any copies here?
I have one in here. This one?
There we go, yeah. Alright, so we have tuma and tahara, yeah. Last week, what did it say in the Mishnah? In the Mishnah it said, to give a quick summary, in the Mishnah it said, it had a few halachos that the Chachamim told us. Min ha-Torah, from the Torah, these halachos don't apply. As soon as someone is tamei, his entire body is tamei. The Chachamim decided that once someone is a sheni, we said a sheni l'tuma, a person cannot be beyond a sheni. But the Chacham said that your hands can be a sheni l'tuma. That's something that Chacham decided. And the Chacham said, how do you get out of being a sheni l'tuma? What would be the problem of being a sheni l'tuma? The problem is that certain people eat chulin, even mundane fruit and food. They want to eat it tahara, they want to eat it in purity. So they have to wash their hands or toivel their hands, dunk them in the mikvah. Some people, it goes on if someone wants to eat kadashim, someone wants to eat a sacrifice, or someone wants to eat a maisa or whatever it is, tuma, maisa, you have to wash your hands, you have to purify your hands in a few different ways. One of them is washing them, that's the lower way. If it's a lower tuma, then washing hands is enough. The stronger the tuma is, so you have to change the method of how you purify your hands. You have to toivel them, etc. So the Mishnah said that you wash your hands for chulin. And it says that if someone washed his hands it says in the Mishnah that if someone went to the mikvah in order to eat chulin, mundane, regular fruits, he wants to eat it, but tahara, he wants to eat it in purity. V'huchzak, and he had kavana that he's going to the mikvah for chulin. We say that this is good enough for chulin, but if he wants to go eat meiser now, or if he wants to go eat tuma, he wants to go eat kadashim, any higher level of kedusha, he has to go to the mikveh again. Same thing with washing hands. So the Gemarrah, what we were holding is that the Gemarrah said, and the Gemarrah established, there's a machlokes in the Mishnah of Laisa. In the Mishnah it says that if someone washes his hands, this is in Chesam and Beis, if someone washes his hands, and he had kavanah to wash his hands, then his hands become toil. If he did not have kavanah, did not have intent, he just washed his hands without having any intent that he wants to wash it to become toil, his hands stay tummy. So the Gemarrah asked the question, we see from Abadaisa that no matter if you have kavanah, no matter if you have intent or not, you stay toil. The answer was simple. When we're talking about chulin, for chulin, even if you don't have kavanah to wash your hands become toil. So that's what the Gemarrah is answering. The question was, in one place we see that you have to have kavanah washing your hands. If you don't have kavanah, your hands stay tamei. That is if you want to eat maisa. That is if you want to eat tuma. But if it comes to chulin, you don't have to have kavanah. That's the way to explain the contradiction between the Mishnah and the Blatt. So Gemarrah, right now we are holding that the Gemarrah is trying to establish. Tell us where do we know what's the source that when it comes to chulin, you don't have to have kavanah. You don't have to have any intent to wash your hands or to toivel your hands. Gemarrah brought one thing with the wave. Remember the last time we learned about the wave? The wave come crashing down, and the Gemarrah knocks it down. That's not a good proof. And this is where the Gemarrah is holding. How do we know that chulin? You do, in order to purify your hands or purify yourself from chulin, you don't have to have kavanah. How do we know that? Says the Gemarrah. Ela mahanoch. You see the Tosfos loiki ilu loitaval. Ma'aser right next to it. Second Tosfos on the page, right next to it in the Gemarrah, it says Ela meha. Here is what we learn from that in order to purify your hands for chulin, you do not have to have any kavanah, you do not have to have any intent. Zog the Gemarrah, Ela meha. We learned from here that now we learned in the Mishnah, a very interesting Mishnah. It says in Pasuk is on the side, V'chiyutan ma'im al zera. How does do fruits become kosher, become set aside that it can be mekabel tuma? You have to have a kavanah. You have to take water, the kavanah on purpose. You have to take water and pour it on the fruits. or make the fruits wet. If water falls in itself on the fruits, or the fruit falls in itself in the water without anyone having in mind that I want to wash the fruit, then the fruit is never yet though lekabel tuma. It's not ready to receive any tuma. So the Pasuk says, "V'chiyutan mayim azada." If you put on purpose water al zera on seedlings, v'nafal min nivlasam olav, and then something that's tamei fell on the fruit, tamei lachem, that fruit becomes tamei now. So basically, it's saying that in order for a fruit or something that grows, in order for it to be makabel tuma, in order for it to be able to receive tuma, you have to make it wet on purpose. You have to wash the fruit. Once you want to wash the fruit, once you wash the fruit, now the fruit can become tamei. So he says an interesting story. What? Someone was walking, a bag of apples ripped, and the fruits fell into a ditch full of water. Amasamayim went into the water. So basically, you did not put the fruits into the water on purpose. The fruits got wet without a purpose. Upashat mishi yad of tameis, someone that his hands are tamei, he stuck his hands inside it in order to save the fruit. Venotlan, and he took out the fruits. So now it's very interesting. He's toiveling his hands. He's tamei. His hands are tamei. He's toiveling his hands and he's grabbing the fruit. What happens to his hands? What happens to his fruit? So the Gemarrah says, yod of tahoidos, his hands become toil because he toiveled them, even though he did not have any kavanas to toivel them. His hands still become tamei. Upeos, and the fruits don't change their status. Why? Because the peiros do not fall into the category of if someone gave on water on purpose, because the peiros, the fruits, got wet without any intent. So the peiros, the fruit stays the same category; they don't change any status. His hands become toil. So here we have clear proof that in order to purify your hands for chulin, you don't have to have kavanah, because as soon as he puts his hand inside the water, even if he didn't want to put his hands to make it clean, he just put his hands into the water to take out the fruit. His hands are toil. Sagt die Gemarrah.
That's interesting.
Sagt die Gemarrah weiter. Ve'im b'shvil sheyutchu, now they finish this off. Ve'im b'shvil sheyutchu yadav. If he had kavanah that I'm putting my hands inside the water so that my hands should become purified, it doesn't make a difference. Yadav tahiris, his hands are again toil, because he had kavanah, it doesn't make a difference. But now the fruits change because you got your hands wet on purpose. You had the putting your hands into the water was not only to take out the fruit, it was to purify your hands. So the water on your hands were put on your hands on purpose. And now he decided, let me also go take the fruit. The water that's on your hands could make the fruit though to become tuma. Now the fruit is considered bechiyutan because of the hands. So why? What's the difference? The difference is that once you had kavanah of your hands going to water, if you have one action that you want to do, I want to take the fruits out of the water. I don't care if my hands get wet or not. So there's no kavanah, not on the putting the hands into the water and not picking out the fruit. The kavanah is not to get the fruit wet, only to get the fruit out. Once you had two kavanahs, I want to clean my hand, and I'm also going to take out the fruit. The water that's on my hand that's not touching the fruit, once I take it out of the water, that water that makes the fruit wet makes the fruit be makabel tuma.
So you don't have to have a specific intent to be machshir the peiros to be makabel.
No, you don't have to have intent to machshir, but you have to have an intent to put water on the peiros.
So the fact that you had intent to put your hands in the water,
which you wanted your hands to be wet,
by definition,
you wanted your hands to be wet. Now you take them out, dry them out, and put them back in. But no, so now the fruit. So that's an interesting halacha. So now the peiros are considered that you put the water onto the peiros and they can be makabel tuma. Right now the peiros are not tummy because the hands are clear, pure. But now the peiros can be makabel tuma. Because that's here is proof that chulin, if your hands are tummy, this tuma of chachamim, which is called tuma sheni, yadayim shniyasein, and you just dunk them into a pool of water without having intent. The pool of water obviously has to be a mikvah and everything. Then your hands become toil. Okay, that's the end of this. Rabbi asked Rav Nachman two questions. And we see at the end that Rabbi thought that Rav Nachman was just pushing him away, and then he realized, no, he was actually serious. If someone, says no mission, if someone goes into the mikvah in order to eat chulin, and he had kavanah that he wants to eat chulin, he cannot, with this tevilah does not give him the power to eat maisa. Again, Minat Torah doesn't exist, such a thing doesn't exist. If you go to mikvah, it doesn't make a difference what you go to mikvah for. You can eat a kalban. Chum said this type of thing. So, but here, Chulin, he went to the mikvah for Chulin, he had a kavanah for Chulin, he cannot eat maisa. So what is the Arabah asking? He's deducing. Huchzak in. If you had kavanah to for Chulin, then you become tahara. Lo yuchzak lo. If you did not have kavanah for Chulin, then you're not tahara. Basically asking a question. Here we see that in order to become purified for Chulin, you have to have kavanah. In our Mishnah it says you had kavanah to eat Chulin. Now you can eat Chulin. But if you didn't have kavanah, if the Mishnah says that if you had kavanah you become tahara for eating Chulin, if you didn't have kavanah you can't eat Chulin. No, but the Gemara loy hachkam. This is how you have to say it. Loy hachkam. This is how you have to say it. You have to add like this. If someone goes to the mikveh to eat Chulin, even though that right now he went to the mikveh and it's good enough for Chulin, doesn't mean that he had to have kavanah for Chulin. Even without kavanah, he's now good to eat Chulin. The Mishnah is coming to tell you that if you go to mikveh, even without kavanah to eat Chulin, you're good enough for Chulin and you're not good enough for Maisa. Okay, so again, Chulin, in order to become purified for Chulin, you don't have to have kavanah. He's asking a second question. Eisvei, Taval velo yuchzak. The Mishnah continues and says that if he went to mikveh, he didn't have any kavanah. As it is as if he never went to the mikveh. My love, kilul taval klal. That it's not considered a tefillah for anything, not even for Chulin. So here again, we see that in order to become purified for Chulin, you have to have kavanah. My love, ki'ilu tova klal. Nothing one loy. Ki'ilu tova lemaisa, aval tova lechulin. But he's even if he didn't have kavanah for Chulin, it's good enough. That's what Nachman is answering Rabba. So Rabba thought he's just adding words in the Mishnah. Hu saval, he thought that the Nachman is just pushing him away. He's just adding a few words in the Mishnah. What did he do? Nafak, he went out. Duck, he was a medayik. He looked it up in his father. He looked it up. The Ashkach, and he found the Tani. He found another. But I said it says very clearly, Taval v'lo yuchzak. If someone went to the mikveh and he did not have any kavanah, so we have a very clear proof that in order to become purified for Chulin, you do not have any intent. Here comes a very interesting Gemarrah. We have a concept in Sukkah. We have a concept. I'm saying Sukkah because Sukkah is one of the things we do today and we see it. Is that if you build the wall of the Sukkah, if you don't put it all the way down to the floor, it's called lavut. It's lavut, meaning it's connected. There's another concept called good asik mechitza and good achis mechitza. Sorry, good achis means it goes down. That the mechitza, once it's between a certain type of height, it's as if the whole thing is pulled down. And asik means it's pulled up. The Gemarrah is going to say a very interesting case where someone is going to a mikveh, and the mikveh is that's going to be very soon with the mikveh, the 40 saw. But here, what I'm saying is the next Gemarrah. This Gemarrah is a little bit different. Again, about kavanas, and can you change your kavanah? If you had a kavanah for something, you go into mikveh and you had something in mind, can you change your mind? Sorry, the next Gemarrah is going to be about the good achas, good asik, about pulling down, pulling up. Amar Abelazar, Taval ve'ola, if someone went down to the mikveh, ve'ola, he got out of the mikveh, machzik atzmoilach, and he did not have any kavanah, so right before, I guess, he dries himself off, he's ready to move on, machzik atzmoilach mashit, so he can have kavanah. Okay, I went to the mikveh for, I can basically predate it. I can predate my machshava and say that I went to the mikveh just now. I'm going for tuma, I'm going for maisa, I'm going for kachim, whatever it is that he wants to. He can make up whatever he wants. That's what Abelazar says. Meisvei, we're going to ask a question on that. If someone is in the mikveh and he's about to walk out and one foot is still in the mikveh, if he had a kavanah for a lower tuma, let's say he had a kavanah for Chulin. Now, if his foot is still touching the water, he can change his mind for something more stricter, Maisa, tuma, etc. Although, if he pulls both feet out of the mikveh, he cannot change his mind anymore. My love, once you're out of the water, you cannot do anything. So if it's a still on Abelazar, that Abelazar says that once you walk out, You can now decide. You can predate your machshava and decide whatever you want to do. And for the Gemarrah, loy. There's a difference. Oideyu, if his foot is still inside the mikveh, afat b'shehuchzak machzik. Even though he had a kavanah for something else, he can go and change a kavanah. If he had no kavanah, then you have time even after you walk out. If you had some kavanah, you have to still be in the mikveh in order to change the kavanah. If you had no kavanah, you can go out of the mikveh and do anything you want. So Eideyu, if his foot is still inside, even if he had any kavanah, machzik, he can have a different kavanah. Allah, if he walked out, if he didn't have anything in mind, machzik, then he can make up something now. If he had something in mind while he's in the mikvah, now he walks out, you're done. Eina machzik, you cannot change it. So the blatt says that if he walks out of the mikvah, he can make up something. I mean, this is talking about a case where he didn't have any kavanah, and now he makes up the kavanah. Now he decides after he goes out of the mikvah, okay, I went to the mikvah for myself. The Mishnah is talking about that he had a kavanah. You want to change the kavanah, you got to still be in the mikvah. Interesting Allah. Zag the Gemarrah, man tana oideo dagle achas b'mayim. Who is the tana that says this halacha, that if your foot is still in the water, it's considered that you're still in the water? Amar Rabbah said, Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda. Learned in the Mishnah, mikvah shnimdat boy v'yesh ba'abam so mechuvanos. If someone measured a mikvah and he sees there's a pit, there's rainwater, and that is exactly 40 saw to the dot. You know the measurement. They know the measurement by this measurement, by this measurement, by the height of this measurement. If it's full of water, that's 40 saw. If you know basically that it is exactly 40 saw, if someone goes in a mikveh and walks out, he takes water with him, now the mikveh doesn't have 40 saw. Okay? If it's exactly 40 saw, if someone goes in a mikveh and he walks out, the water stays in the body, now the mikveh doesn't have 40 saw. So what happened here in the case? What happened here? Mikveh shim de'boyesh ba'boyim some chavanis. He has exactly 40 saw. V'yod u'shnaim, and two people decided to go to mikveh. V'tavlu zeh achazeh, one guy goes into the mikveh, and he goes out, and then the other guy goes in the mikveh. So this the first one is taught because he went into a kosher mikveh. The Asheni didn't go into a kosher mikveh because now the mikveh doesn't have 40 saw. Rabbi Yehuda said, if they didn't go one after the other, they went together. The first one toivel, he walked out, and as he walks out, the second one toivels, but his foot is still touching. The first guy's foot is still touching the water. If the feet of the first are still touching the water, we say that the entire body is connected. All the water on the body is connected. Even the water in the hair, which soaks up a lot of water from the mikvah, is still connected with the mikvah. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda believes in the concept of good asik, that you pull down the mechitza. That once it touches a little bit, you consider that all the water is pulled down. So even though the guy is basically out of the water, his toe is touching the water, we consider that the mikvah still has 40 saw, and the second one is started. That's Rabbi Yehuda's shita. Okay, the Chachamim don't agree with it. The Chachamim say no, it doesn't make a difference if the guy is touching the mikvah, he's still going to be tummy. The second guy is going to be tummy. Rav Nachman said the name of Rav Avua, Machloikas. This machloikas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon, whether the second guy can become toil if the first guy's feet are still in the mikvah. This machloikas, the milas the Rabbanon. This is only if someone is tamei, a tuma of the Rabbanon. We're not talking about someone who's tamei midalaisa. Someone is tamei tuma Rabbanon. His hands became tamei, and for whatever reason he has to go to the mikvah. It's a tuma the Rabbanon, not a tuma the Raisa. And here he wants to go from this tuma to that tuma. I was able to eat chulin, I want to eat maisel, and I go to mikvah to eat maisel. According to the Torah, if you're Torah for chulin, you're Torah for maisel also. We're talking about the Rabbanon. In the Rabbanon case, so here we say the difference. Here we say that if it's still touching, we consider the water is, if his feet are still touching, the water is still the same thing. That's what the Menachem Amar Rabba was. But tahara, but if we're talking about something that someone is tamei midaraisa, in such a case, we do not say that the water is touching. If it's coming to a tuma of the raisa, we're more machmir, and we don't say that the body connects the water. This is what the Rabbatos meant when he said that who is this Tana that says that once the foot if the foot is still inside, you can change your mind. This is Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda said that if your foot is still inside a mikvah, it's considered that the whole body is inside a mikvah, and therefore you can change your mind. The Gemarrah says there's another opinion. The machloikas is in real tuma midaraisa. If the Torah says a person's tummy, he has to go to mikvah. Rabbi Yehuda is mekel, and it says that if the foot still touches, the second one can still go to mikvah and become Torah midaraisa. But when it comes to Rabbanon, even the second one is Torah. And he argues with us. Basically, simple machloikas. Whether you say that the water is connects, you say all the water from the top of the body to the bottom of the body connects. If the guy is still touching the water. Now comes an interesting question. If we go according to the Shitta that the water connects, can someone take a needle, which is a small device, and toivel it on the first guy's head? His head is full of water. Stick it into the water, just swish it around, and would it be considered going to the mikvah? If you say that his feet connect the whole mikvah, all the water, and becomes 40 saw, then can a toivel something on his head?
Does his feet need to be in the water?
Yeah, the feet need to be in the water. If his feet touch the water, but his body's totally out, and his hair is wet with rainwater, and the mikvah, 40 saw, can a toivel? He will be the machlekes whether we say that mechitzas only get pulled down, or the mechitzas also get pulled up. When we say good achis, do we say that if it's within a certain height, we consider the mechitzah all the way to the bottom? Do we say that as well by going up? That will be machlekes. If we say mechitzas get pulled up, then if you put a needle on top of the hair, it pulls all the water. So we'll see a few interesting machlekes regarding this thing. They asked the Rabbi a question. Let Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, can you toivel needles and small pipes on the head of the first guy? What's the svara? What's the machlekes? What's the question? Good achis is Rabbi Yehuda. We know that Rabbi Yehuda holds that good achis, mechitza gets pulled down. So if the second guy is sitting in the mikveh and is toiveling while the first guy's feet are still touching, we know that he's good. The question is, good asik lesley or dilam good asik namisle? Does the Rabbi Yehuda hold that the mechitza gets pulled up, the water gets pulled up, or does he not say that? If the water gets pulled up, then it's a good. Then you can purify the needle. If it's not. He says, we learned this already. It's not a question. We learned it. Interesting Gemarrah. Shalish Gemamias Benachal. There was a river that had 3 ditches. In the river there was 3 levels. Upper, lower, and the middle. The upper level ditch and the lower level ditch, each one had 20 sod, so not enough to be a mikvah. The middle one by itself is enough to be a mikvah. Shalaboim so has 40 sod. And the 3 ditches connect. And there's a little river, some kind of pooling of water, rainwater that connects the upper, the middle, the lower.
I think we had this in Rambam a few months ago, no?
Could be.
We did.
At some point in Rambam somewhere. Hilchas mikvahs. Okay, so now the middle one is 40 so by itself. It's kosher, it's good. If you toivel in there, you're fine. No one's asking the question. The middle one is 40 so you can toivel. The question is, can you toivel in the top one and the lower one? And it would be the same machlekes. If the water gets pulled up, then you can toivel in the top one, no problem. If the lower one, for sure you can toivel. Why? Because we know the water gets pulled down. Abida says the water gets pulled down. So the question is the upper one. So what does it say there? Rabbi Yehuda himself says, what does it say? That the May would say that he can toivel in the upper one. What is he basically saying? And Rabbi doesn't argue with the man. So he's basically saying that the water gets pulled up. So therefore, the same thing also with the needle in the head. Yeah, you can toivel the needle in the head. We see in a different way, said a little bit different lashon. Rabbi Yehuda says that the May said mat bilbolyone can toivel vani oimel, but I say no. But why? Because again, water only gets pulled down; it doesn't get pulled up. Amalei So Rabbi Yochanan said, Itani. If that's how you learned it, that's what it is. And so Machlekes and Rabbi Yehuda and Meir. If we go according to Rabbi Yehuda, you cannot wash a needle on a guy's hair because the water only goes down. According to the Meir, apparently you could wash in the guy's hair. So it's not. We don't know the halacha exactly, but in the mikvah, if the guy's still in the mikvah, his feet are still touching, then it's not a problem. But if you wash it in his hair, then you have a machlekes of Yehuda and Meir. Okay. Small page of Gemarrah. The Mishnah said like this: if someone goes to the mikvah in order to eat chulin, to eat chulin, then the Mishnah says he cannot eat ma'aser. Who is this Mishnah that says that it makes a differentiation between chulin and ma'aser? That in order for chulin you have to have one kedusha, go to mikvah for chulin, and for ma'aser you have to have a second, go to mikvah for second. And what I have in mind for ma'aser. The shanu lehu ben chulin ma'aser. They made a difference between chulin and ma'aser. Okay, how do we know that Chacham made a difference between chulin and ma'aser? Because where is this Rabbanon? It's in a different place. They have a machlokes with a male, and they say that chulin and ma'aser are different. The chulin is one tefillah. If you go to mikvah for chulin, is one thing. If you want to eat ma'aser, you have to go to mikvah a second time. The Meir says no, one time is enough for chulin and ma'aser. The Meir says chulin and ma'aser have the same level of kedusha. Ma'aser is not such a it's holy, but it's not as holy as ma'aser sheni, or it's not as holy as tuma, as kadashim. So therefore, chulin and ma'aser is the same thing. The Rabbanan say no, ma'aser is its own thing, chulin is its own thing. Okay. So the beginning of the Mishnah that we mentioned that you have to, if you want to go to mikvah for chulin, you cannot eat ma'aser. You'll have to go to mikvah separately. That is the Rabbanan. Aim a sefer. The Gemara is going to ask a question. If you look in the sefer, we see that the sefer, the later part of the Mishnah, does not differentiate between chulin and ma'aser. So we're going to have to say that the sefer is the Rabbanan, the Meir. And that's a problem. We usually like to divide. We don't like to divide a Mishnah and say that part of a Mishnah is one Tana and the other part is someone else. We would like to say that the whole Mishnah is one thing, unless the Mishnah says Oma that Meir, Oma that Yehuda. Then we obviously make a difference. But if it's not, then the Mishnah has to be one Tana. That's what we like to establish. So now we establish at the beginning of the Mishnah is the Rabbanan, because the Rabbanan are the ones that argue with the Meir and say that chulin and ma'aser have different levels of kedusha. Aim a sefer, 5 lines to the top. Aim a sefer, look at the sefer. Big day Amma Adatz. We said later on in the Mishnah that the clothing of an Amma Adatz, because he's not careful about being about the tumas nida and zava, the tuma that your clothing, your garment, your chair becomes tummy. So we said in the Mishnah that for a padush, for someone that's more careful in eating even chulin tahara, the begadim of an Amma Adatz is considered, the tmei midas is considered the level of tuma that you will become tamei. Tmei midas is the level of avatuma. So basically the Mishnah says that the Chacham decided that the clothing, the garment, the chair, bed of an Amma Adatz is an avatuma, is so tamei that if someone is careful eating even chulin tahara, he shouldn't touch it. Over there, what is the next level the Mishnah says? The Mishnah discusses chulin. Then the Mishnah discusses tuma. The Mishnah skips over ma'aser. The Mishnah does not discuss that if someone wants to eat ma'aser tahara, he has to be careful not to touch someone's chulin. Why? Because someone that wants to eat ma'aser tahara, the garment of a chulin tahara is enough. Again, in the beginning of the Mishnah, we differentiate between chulin and ma'aser. If you go to the mikveh for chulin, that's not good enough for ma'aser. You have to go separately to mikveh for ma'aser. Or unless you have in mind to go for mikveh for ma'aser, then you can also eat chulin. Later on the Mishnah says if someone's garments makes you tamei, so it is only the garment of someone that eats chulin. And then the next garment level it says is tuma. It skips the level of ma'aser. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself. No. The Mishnah says that if someone, an Amma Adatz, is not careful about his garments, so his garment would make someone that eats chulin tahara would make him tamei. The next thing it says that if someone eats tuma b'tahara, eats the higher level tuma b'tahara, he should not touch the garment of someone who eats chulin b'tahara.
Skipping over Maisa.
But this doesn't say Maisa, which means that chulin and Maisa here is the same thing. That someone that is careful about eating chulin b'tahara, he can also eat Maisa b'tahara. Wait till he skips the whole Maisa, he doesn't differentiate. So Amos say the big damo it's midos lepuushin, big the puushin midos loichatuma, but big the puushin are considered a midos for echatuma. Asan le'amer goes according to the Amer that says the Amma chulin and Maisa kahadinino. The chulin and Maisa are the same level of kedusha. So basically, what are you telling me? Reisha is Rabbanon and Seifa is Amer. This we don't like. We don't like to divide the Mishnah. So the Gemarrah says, I don't have a choice. Reisha Rabbanon and Seifa Amer. Acha ba'ada has a different gissa. It says, Masni la b'Seifa chamash mailas. In the Seifa, the story with the garments, he adds one story. There's another type of people that they eat Maisa b'tahara. And basically he puts the whole Maisa in between the story of the Chulin and the Tuma. Basically adds a level. Masna b'Seifa chamash mailas. Amukah l'kulak rabbanan. Now it's not a problem. Now everything goes according to the Rabbanan. That says Chulin is different, Maisa is different, Tuma is different. That's the answer here. Okay. Here comes a piece of Gemarrah that I broke my head and I did not understand. I looked in the art scroll, did not understand it. So I guess this will be the last thing we'll learn here because I just got stuck.